When talking about hated weapons, it's usually for one of two reasons. Either A, it's extremely frustrating to play against, or B, it's extremely frustrating to play with. But there are very few weapons out there that are hated for both reasons. One assault rifle in particular, the Man-O-War, is one of them. Some think it's completely broken due to its sheer lethality and utility, while some think it's quite weak due to its inconsistency and easy counters. Now I find this pretty interesting since no other weapon has this level of discrepancy in terms of what the community thinks of it, and that's exactly what I want to talk about today, as the Man-O-War is a prime example of a gimmick weapon. Here's why. The Man-O-War with the Thermite Ammo, which I'll be calling the Thermo for the rest of this video, is arguably the most unique assault rifle in the entire game, as it features the unique mechanic of dealing damage over time. Each shot will inflict 4 ticks of afterburn, with each tick dealing a maximum of 13 damage on direct hit. So once you add this to the initial damage, you'll be dealing in total 67 to 60 damage per shot, which will translate to a 2-shot kill no matter the range. This makes range boosting completely pointless, and also means that the OWC light suppressor, which is typically a bad choice on most guns, is actually a top tier attachment on the Thermo, since it has no impact on its actual lethality. And since it only needs 2 shots to kill, what you can do is land 2 shots, back off, and let the afterburn do its thing. Even if you die, you'd still be very likely to kill them beyond the grave, so it is really good for denying enemies of very high streaks. The high damage over time also makes it easily the best primary weapon for taking out larger score streaks, such as Goliaths, chopper gunners, and VTOLs. The Thermo also has excellent accuracy, combining one of the best full auto BSA scores in the entire game, with an extremely easy recoil pattern that is both unidirectional and consistent. This allows you to do 2 things. First of all, you can make full use of its amazing damage profile, since you can take on pretty much any range you come across in standard multiplayer. Second, you can be quite a bit more liberal with boosting mobility and handling, while still having great accuracy, especially since you don't have to worry about boosting range either. As a result, the Thermo features competitive mobility and handling, which means that you have no issues with relocating to crucial positions, and you can reliably respond to skirmish gunfights. However, the Thermo does have a few problems as well, so let us address them one by one. First of all, missing shots are fairly punishing. This is for 2 reasons. The more obvious reason being its fire rate, which, while yes, is faster than other 2-tap weapons, is still relatively slow. The second reason is the mag size, which is very small at 15, which means that you will be reloading a lot more frequently, and each shot is much more valuable compared to other weapons. The other downside is the fact that, while on paper it only requires 2 shots to kill, this doesn't take into account the time it takes for the afterburn damage to run its course and actually secure the kill. This total time is quite slow, and means that in any head-on engagement, the enemy can potentially kill you before they fully burn to death, and if they're Vulture or Quick Fix, they can potentially survive that afterburn damage. Also, your shots do get intercepted by trophy systems, which can get pretty annoying. But those drawbacks are nothing compared to its main downside, the fact that its afterburn damage counts as fire damage. This is a problem because now it is affected by the perks Flak Jacket and Dauntless, which will directly reduce the afterburn damage. Enemies with Flak Jacket will take an extra shot to kill, which is still quite workable since an infinite 3-tap is still pretty good. Dauntless has a more noticeable impact since it will now be a 4-tap outside of the initial range, which is quite rough for a slow-firing weapon. And if the enemy is running both of them, well, you can forget about killing them entirely as they're effectively immune to the afterburn damage, and you basically have a BB gun at that point. This makes the Thermo the only weapon in which its lethality is directly affected by the enemy's loadout. In every encounter, you're pretty much going, oh god, please don't have it. and then you die.
Retire!
Because they do have it. This is the most frustrating aspect of the thermo, since you can get completely shut down by factors beyond your control. And if the enemy has died to you multiple times, they will more than likely switch to a flak jacket plus dauntless loadout. Actually, when you think about it, the introduction of wildcards is a pretty big indirect nerf to this gun. So is the thermo actually good or bad? Well, it's niche, but it is a very strong niche at that. First of all, being able to quickly land 2 shots is a really strong trait, as you hardly have to engage with the enemy. There's also a bit of a psychological element to this gun, since the thermite particles can be pretty disorienting, and the weapon itself is very frustrating to fight against, so it's really good at tilting the enemy, which can impact the way they play in the long run. Being the best anti-score streak weapon is a valuable tool as well. Enemy team is running persistence and starts spamming their big streaks, just pull this bad boy out and they magically disappear. But what if the enemy is running dauntless and flak jacket? I can't kill those guys. Well, who said you could only be using this gun all the time? That's right, the introduction of wildcards might have hurt the thermo if you're using it as your main weapon, but as a support weapon it actually benefits here. This is because it is one of the best weapons to use for an overkill loadout. So for example, you could have any flex weapon such as the USS-9 or the XM4. This here will be your main weapon, which you'll be using most of the time. And then you can have the thermo as your second primary, and you'll be using this for poking at longer ranges such as challenging a sniper or destroying score streaks. And if you want to be really toxic about it, you can pair this with any of the fire shotguns, since Dragon's Breath doesn't actually count as fire damage, and as such, Dauntless and Flak Jacket won't reduce their damage. When it comes to building the thermo, there is really only one way to build it, since there is no benefit to range boosting, so some attachments such as the OWC Marksman and Colossus Suppressor are completely useless. Instead, this allows you to focus on improving the weapon's mobility and handling while maintaining BSA. Start with the Thermite Ammo, obviously it wouldn't be the thermo without it, Granulated Grip Tape for better BSA, OWC Light Suppressor for concealment, and the MIP Light Barrel Short and YKM Light Stock for better mobility and handling. If you don't like the iron sights, you can swap out the stock for an optic of preference. And that pretty much wraps up everything there is to know about the thermo. I do think that this is one of the more unique weapons in the game, and as such encourages a pretty unique playstyle. Now personally, I don't use this weapon very often since I find it pretty annoying to play against, but I do have an overkill loadout just for the thermo in case the enemy has persistence and I need to take out their score streaks. But that's just my experience from using the weapon, so what do you guys think about the thermo? Do you think it's overpowered, underpowered, or just fine the way it is? Do let me know in the comments. And if you found the video helpful, please leave a like and subscribe. My last video did way better than I expected, and for that I have to say thank you guys so much. You guys are the absolute best. But that doesn't change the fact that less than 10% of you guys are actually subscribed, so please get that fixed so you don't miss my next video. I promise it won't be another assault rifle unless something interesting happens, you'll never know. But until then, I'll be seeing you in the next one. Bye bye.